Welcome to this deep dive into clinical transcripts and data from the Parental Alienation Study Group.
And also Dr. Craig Childress and Karen Woodall.
Right, exactly. And we're speaking directly to you today, the targeted parent.
Yeah. We know how incredibly isolating it is to try and explain why your child is just suddenly rejecting you.
Only to watch your friends and family kind of just glaze over.
People naturally assume you know where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
Which leaves you feeling entirely alone. But our goal today is to give you a mental toolkit, a sort of translator.
To help you explain parental alienation to your village, the teachers, the grandparents, your friends.
Without sounding crazy.
Exactly. And the key to that is shifting to a calm, soft-spoken, Socratic approach.
Because when parents are desperate, the instinct is to lecture right.
Oh, absolutely. You want to throw around clinical terms to prove what's happening.
But how do we shift out of that desperation? How do we use this Socratic method with skeptics?
Well, lecturing usually just makes people think you're bitter. The Socratic method turns that dynamic around by asking the right questions.
You guide them to the truth.
Yes. Instead of defensive rants, you calmly ask your village something like, how do we distinguish between a child protecting themselves from an abuser and a child being manipulated?
Manipulated to reject a loving parent.
Right. That immediately reframes the conversation.
Because your friends are likely confusing this with normal teenage rebellion or estrangement.
An estrangement is a normal, messy reaction to actual abuse or neglect.
Right. But alienation is a delusion. It's where a child rejects a normal-range parent for completely absurd reasons.
You're guiding them to see this isn't just a messy custody dispute.
You can casually mention it's actually classified in the DSM-5 under code V995.51 as child psychological abuse.
But the real power is letting them connect those dots themselves, without feeling lectured.
Definitely. And the sources dive heavily into the why behind the child's behavior. Specifically, this concept of a double bind.
Leading to fright without solution? How does that actually play out for the child in real time?
Well, picture a child completely dependent on an unstable, alienating parent.
Okay.
That parent sends a covert, terrifying message. Loving your other parent is a betrayal of me.
So the child is trapped in this impossible emotional loyalty test.
Exactly. And when the alienating parent becomes volatile or withdraws their love, the child experiences that fright without solution.
Because they can't escape.
And they can't seek comfort from the person terrifying them.
It's just devastating to think about. To survive that kind of pressure, they essentially have to amputate half of their own identity.
It is a literal trauma response.
And that trauma response explains the bizarre behaviors your village might find so baffling.
That's why you see that chilling lack of empathy if you cry in front of them. Or that haughty arrogance.
I'll often robotically recite the independent thinker script.
You'll hear an 8-year-old using adult vocabulary they clearly didn't invent, saying things like, nobody tells me what to think, this is my own choice.
They're desperately jumping on a grenade.
On a grenade to shield the alienating parent, yes.
Because they genuinely believe that grenade is the only safe place to be.
Exactly.
So when the village hears those scripted lines, what should their role be? How do they support the child without validating the delusion?
They have to act as a healthy mirror. If the child claims you are dangerous or evil, the village shouldn't argue, but they absolutely shouldn't agree.
They remain strictly pro-relationship.
You gently plant seeds of doubt. A teacher or grandparent can simply say, that's interesting, that hasn't been my experience with your dad at all.
But what about your own communication with the ex-spouse? It feels like the urge to fight fire with fire would just be overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but you have to be the sane, safe anchor. This is where the BIF method is crucial.
Brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
Yes. If you get a hostile email blaming you for everything, you don't defend yourself.
You write back something like, thanks for the update on the schedule. I will pick them up at 3 p.m. on Friday.
Treat it purely as a bland business transaction.
You're refusing to participate in the chaos. And that ties into the overarching theme the sources recommend for the targeted parent.
Being the lighthouse.
Right. The research shows reunification does happen, but often later when the child escapes that coercive environment.
So don't chase the boat into the storm. You just keep your light on standing steady so they can find their way back to you when the storm finally breaks.
Using this Socratic toolkit helps shift your village from confused spectators to educated allies.
You're working together to protect a child from what the clinical data calls mental kidnapping.
You're changing the environment around the child, showing them they don't have to erase half of who they are to stay safe.
It's so vital.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a lingering question to ponder on your own.
If a child is forced to psychologically amputate half of their own identity just to survive their childhood.
How might that deep, unaddressed trauma unconsciously dictate the way they bond with and raise their own future children?